everyone, and welcome to the Replayer Podcast, a video game podcast where we discuss everything that went down on the Retro Replay show each week. I'm Pagan, your host for this week's episode, and with me today is my lovely co-host and man of many voices, Mr. Dan Mars.
Hello.
And hi. And joining us today, we have the one and only king of puns himself, Mr. Greg Bergner is here.
Why, hello there.
Hi. Okay, well, look, before we get into it, a quick recap for anyone who doesn't know. Retro Replay is a YouTube channel hosted by Troy Baker and Nolan North, and it's run by Drew and crew. And they upload 2 episodes per week, and one of them is a modern game playthrough. Currently, they're doing the Uncharted series, and the other is a trip back in time where they play some of the amazing retro games of yesteryear. And this Replayer podcast is where we sit back, rewind, and discuss the content of their most recent uploads and their many tangents. So this week, we were going to be discussing Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, the definitive playthrough, episode 13, and of course Nolan and Troy's run through of the retro arcade classic Narc.
Love it.
Yeah, you played any of these games? I mean, obviously I've played through the Uncharted series quite a bit. Anybody else sort of?
I have played all of the Uncharted games, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys played Narc?
I have not. I didn't even know it was a thing until a few years ago. I've never seen. I grew up with arcade stuff, but I never saw it at an arcade. Or at least from my memory, I may have overglanced it, but I don't recall seeing it whatsoever. But I just remember hearing the name prior.
I, like Greg, I know of the game and its reputation. I've heard of it before in the past, but me as a kid growing up, I was an SNES kid, not SNES.
Okay.
So
SNES.
it's not the
I
SNES. So I mean, I feel like Narc was on the Genesis, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, because and like Greg, I haven't seen it in the arcades before. I'm sure when I was in the arcade, I was more distracted by like Mortal Kombat and Rush. San Francisco Rush.
So if for just, sort of background for anybody who doesn't know, Retro Replay uploaded a show or an episode this week where they played Narc. It's a game that came out in 1988, and it was an arcade game designed by Eugene Jarvis and Williams Electronics and programmed by George Petro. It was one of the first ultraviolet games and frequent target of parental criticism of the arcade game industry because the objective is to arrest and kill drug offenders, confiscate their money and drugs, and defeat Mr. Big.
And get eaten by dogs.
I think that was pretty funny. Yeah, I thought that was like hilarious, the way that game plays out. Like all of their villains are like really strange. Like the first villain they come across looks like a subway flasher, where he's got like a trench coat, but he's not got a top on and he's not wearing any shoes. And he's just like, this is so weird. And as Nolan says, he's like an Uncle Fester looking guy.
And then they pull guns out and
like,
shoot at
what
you.
the hell was that design? Yeah, right. And it's like, no, don't shoot. Wait, hold on.
Most drug offenders. That's the outfit of most drug offenders too, by the way. Right? So clearly, if you wear something that looks like that and you look like Uncle Fester, you're clearly clear. You're an enemy of this game.
And you're hiding.
If you have a shaved head, that's it. If you have a shaved head and a trench coat and you're not wearing a top or shoes, I'm gonna run in the other direction because you're about to fire something at me, like some hypodermic needles or something. Like you're definitely gonna start attacking me.
It's
and then
okay.
another of their.
We totally have Uzis, and we're just mowing them down with Uzis.
Yeah, that's it. In our infinite supply of ammo.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, not a big deal. And we're just gonna pick up all your money and drugs. We won't report it to anybody. We're not gonna actually take it back to the station. We're just gonna pick it up.
Yeah.
And what was it?
And money's us for the taking.
Clown.
Oh my god, the murder clown?
Yeah, the murder clown? Like, what was all that about? And it's got like a butcher's apron and everything on.
Knocks him to the ground and starts stabbing you in the face.
I'm sorry, that was scary. I would be so scared playing that. Like, that's just weird.
You definitely don't want to play Killing Floor then.
Probably not. Like, I think like we were discussing this recently about like how can somebody be scared of clowns? But that's an actual thing. Like Nolan said he was scared of clowns.
I've been
and I think
terrified of clowns since when I was like 10 years old. That movie terrified me.
Yeah, I think what happened was that originally when the Barnum and Bailey circus thing with the clown, at one point clowns were like, oh, clowns are cool, this and that. But I think what happened is like once, like in the kind of especially in like the 70s and 80s when they started making movies where people like horror movies with like people dressed up as clowns, I think what happened is for some reason the demographic for clowns, which not many people, that's a small demographic, but I think what happened was they ended up giving it a bad reputation to make clowns even scarier. Because when at first you look at a clown and you're like, oh, it's just a person in makeup and a red nose, no big deal. But then like when you make like it, like Dan said, it or something that's like
Mhm.
killer clowns from outer space, something that makes the clown look scary, then it completely changes how you view clowns. And unfortunately, it gave them a bad rep to the point where people are now like, it's like either you like clowns or you're completely terrified of clowns.
Mhm. I think that what would it be? Kind of like the exaggeration of their features, like where they have the big, like fake drawn on lips and like the over exaggerated eyes and everything like that. The exaggeration of facial features is just scary.
Oh,
I don't like that.
100%.
I think
I
it's just
agree.
I
it's
remember being afraid
horrendous.
of
Like I mean, if
clowns
you
even before it too. Like I remember
Mm.
as a kid going to like a pizza party and there was a clown there and I was just like, nope, 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 nope.
Oh really?
Yeah, clowns don't actually bother me, like whatsoever, because I've seen Ronald McDonald and I've been to a circus and I've been to places with clowns and I think took a picture with a clown one time or outline like a drawing of a clown. Clowns never really scared me. They really don't. But I understand like if you see it or if like you grew up and like it really is just about how it's really first impression, like how a clown is presented to you when you first like
Yeah.
get introduced to them as a kid, and that really just then that depends on like what your brain associates clowns with. Is it like, oh, they're fun and goofy and silly, or they're
Mm.
like, oh god, they're the scariest thing on earth.
Yeah, I think like I mean, I wasn't exposed to it at the time. I mean, the only exposure to it that I had was the recent films, but
Hmm.
I think circus and everything, and I was a big fan of circus performance, and I really liked mime, and obviously clowns I feel like are a version of that, and there is an over exaggeration for facial features and everything. It's still kind of creepy, but I really did like mimes and that kind of physical entertainment aspect, like the slapstick Charlie Chaplin style comedy. I really enjoyed that, so I would have always associated clowns with kind of like, I don't know, happier things. And then I guess if you really did look at it, I must say though, when we had a McDonald's down the street from where we lived, and we went down and they had the Ronald McDonald statue. And I did always think that statue was really creepy. And I don't know if that was just because it was an ill-made statue or if that I found Ronald McDonald creepy,
Hmm.
but I just thought like it kind of gave me like really negative vibes, and it just
Ugh.
it just wasn't great. And I was like, okay, this is really my vision of clowns. And then I think, no, yeah, that's pretty scary. I mean, we were having this conversation the other day, and we were saying like, well, how can you be afraid of clowns? Like if you came home one night and the electricity was off and you went into your bedroom and you saw a clown standing in your bedroom, you'd be freaked out, right?
Well,
You
Yeah.
I mean,
I think I
well,
would be freaked out. If there was a clown in my bedroom, I'd be like, "What?" But
I
you would
think
be
I would
freaked out
literally be like, whoa,
anyway.
whoa, and run away.
I think it depends on what they're doing. If they're like if they have like a board game that I like, or if they have like food, like
Like,
maybe I'd be like, oh hey, cool, we
friendly
can have
clown.
lunch or something. But yeah,
That's
yeah,
how
if
they
it's
get you.
but if they've got like a weird creepy smile and they're doing a weird laugh, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'm gonna like sell my house.
Yeah, yeah.
Like my
No,
house
I
has been
think though
infested with clowns.
Yeah.
it was kind of like that. If anybody was in your bedroom, like you could have had a really beautiful person sitting in your bedroom, but because it's freaking pitch black and you're not expecting them to be there, you're gonna be scared anyway. However, I feel like the clown thing is legit. Like if there was a clown in my house and it was daytime, it was noon and everything was fine, and it's beautiful sunny day. If there's a clown in my house, like I'm out. I'm like you, Greg. Like that house is now on the market. If anybody wants to buy that house, you let me know. Like, nah.
If I can
I'm
to go
not
on the
going back
opposite,
there.
I think there was the dogs too, and like the dogs were eating Nolan alive, but then when you killed the dogs, they turned into puppies and they ran
I
away.
know.
So
It was
somewhere
such a
those developers
contrast.
were like, we can't be that awful that they murder the dogs. They turn into puppies and they run away.
We're kind of like, we have a standard. We have a moral code. We should probably just avoid the whole animal abuse
The dogs
legislation
can
and
eat
just
you alive, but you can't kill the dogs.
no, you have to make them turn into puppies and they run away. The cowards they are.
So really, you're doing a community service by saving dogs as well, because I mean, everyone was already upset about this game in general. So like, why add PETA or somebody to the list that's getting
That's
mad that
true.
you're killing dogs? So it puts like a positive spin. Regardless, you're killing drug offenders and you're
Yeah.
trying to clean the city, but you're also saving dogs from being morbid aggressive, disgusting-looking creatures. So really, it's kind of like
Are
a
they
win-win.
now going to be like reliving their lives as dogs and been like, I need to rethink my dog choices so that I don't go down that path? And now they're going to be really lovely dogs. Like, what was the point in turning them back to puppies? And also, on another note, would that be just teaching that game? Be like, hey, if you shoot this dog, he'll turn into a puppy. And like
Man,
a whole
no.
vast
I really hope
epidemic
that
comes out.
kids playing this game realize that in my opinion, and that's actually a funny point that you bring up, Pagan, because I've thought of scenarios like that where like video games or movies show something and then it like influences kids to make who are very easily manipulated because they're at a young age and they haven't like fully understood how things work. It's at the point where they're like, oh, what happens if I actually try this? So hopefully if there's kids that playing this game and they think that, hopefully they're not playing the game at all.
Yeah,
And
hopefully
someone tells them, oh yeah, this doesn't actually happen.
I just hope that any kids that are playing that game and they're running around blasting puppies with Uzis, they're not going, oh, this seems awesome. I'm going to go to my parents' gun cabinet and grab those Uzis that are just sitting in the other room and start shooting dogs in the neighborhood. Because then I'll turn them all into puppies.
I don't think parents should have just Uzis lying around somewhere in their house, but you know,
what are you talking about, Greg?
That's just me.
What are you talking about? That was definitely a
standard.
standard.
Has an Uzi.
Yeah.
I have them all on my wall. Yeah, that's a standard here. Like, what are you talking about?
Like if the house came with Uzis. Yeah, it was a free upgrade to the house. It comes with a wall of Uzis.
Get the secret weapon cabinet.
3-bedroom property.
You pull the book out of the bookshelf and it spins around and there's a wall of Uzis.
The sales pitch, man. It just be like, so this is a lovely 3-bedroom house. It's a beautiful family estate. You know, it's nice and quiet. And also we have a bookcase. And, you know, it's not just a bookcase. If you just pull on this Harry Potter book here, it turns into a wall full of Uzis.
Like
and
we've got
all
your
the grenades.
Issue, and, like, secret bookshelf full of Uzis. And there's a pool, too. Don't forget the pool.
Yeah, don't forget the pool. Everything's so super family friendly. And then should you have that one intruder, or if you just want to go and shoot some dogs, just, you know, open the thing and you're like, whoa, I'll take it.
Oh, I just realized that's why my dad was always in his office.
See, that's it. He's got a secret book.
Secrets revealed.
Oh.
Yeah.
I knew he couldn't read.
Liar.
Those books are just there for show.
Yeah.
Each book like will display something else. Like
hey,
the Harry Potter book will be
like
a wall full of
about on the shelf here? Oh, don't you worry about it, son. That's too complicated.
Yeah, when you're older, we'll let you know.
Why are all the pages blank, Dad? Don't worry about it.
This one's
gun in it. I personally have never seen Narc before. Like I never had played that, and I think myself and Dan were having this discussion earlier during the week. Is that like I'm not that retro. I was born in 91, so my retro console is PlayStation 1. But
man, I'm gonna age myself so bad.
And in the arcade though, like the games that were really popular at the time were either like some sort of like Need for Speed driving game, or we had like the Resident Evil point and shoots. Those games,
you had a Resident Evil point and shoot in the arcade.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous because we had Time Crisis, but there was never a Resident Evil one.
Yeah, we had Time Crisis as well. There was definitely Resident Evil, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. Of course. They were all like the standards. But Narc never. I feel like it's probably beyond my time.
I feel like maybe it's the violence thing because I feel like I never saw Narc in the arcades.
I don't remember either. And I the only time the earliest I can remember going to arcades was probably in the late 90s or early 2000s. So I'm pretty sure at that time Narc wasn't even in the arcades anymore. So that's probably why I don't remember it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not one of the games that I had played. Uncharted, however, I have played.
Oh, absolutely.
And I thoroughly enjoy like swift segue into Uncharted playthrough. Segue on the live chat of Uncharted. Like, firstly, I have played Uncharted. I loved that episode because that was kind of where the fan and you're like, whoa, slippery naked mine. So it's not great, but yeah, that was a good episode. But on the live chat, it seemed to be controversial that Alana Pierce appeared in. Did anybody else see that? Were you guys in the live chat for that?
I
Oh yeah,
was, yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it was just because they didn't know who she was, or if they were not a fan of the fact that they had a
It was
guest on.
also the first episode that they brought in a guest at all.
That's true.
So it
Yes,
was
yeah,
kind of
that's
like,
true.
whoa, who's this? Who are these people? I mean, Cooper popped in, and we are like, oh, sweet, Cooper. And
Yeah, that was
then,
cool.
but he was there really quickly. It was short. It was like, oh, that was fun. And then you bring in this
It
actual
was
big YouTube and media personality,
Yeah.
it was more like a bit for Cooper.
right?
I think I can explain the
Which
whole
on
Lana
that note,
Pierce issue. Per if you don't mind, I think I can shed some light on the Alana Pierce issue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, this is my point of view. Okay, um, from my knowledge, Alana Pierce originally started, I think, doing videos for IGN,
She
and then
does.
she left to go work on something else, and then she ended up being on. She got hired by Rooster Teeth, and she's part of
Hmm?
the Funhouse side. Funhouse. I don't know how you say it.
Fun
Um,
house.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's primarily there. I don't have an issue with her. But I think what happened was because what I noticed on my end is I've noticed the last three main people that they used for IGN were female, and
Mm.
I think what they did is they used them for more views, especially the newer one now that's currently doing it. It One girl was doing it, and then Alana replaced her for about a year or two, and then she left, and then this new girl replaced Alana.
Mhm.
I think it has to do with like IGN ties, or people like you also said have no idea who she is and not sure why she's a guest, but that sheds some light on the whole situation. I
Definitely.
I personally don't care. I like her. I mean, I don't subscribe to her or watch her stuff, but she does know things, and
Mm.
she is a gaming nerd or a nerd in general, just like all of us.
Mm.
So she fits the bill, but that's I think why people were kind of having
That,
or were kind of confused
yeah,
or didn't like that
her
she was the
reaction.
guest. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I do have a bit of background on Alana pulled from the Rooster Teeth website, just to clear up for anybody who doesn't know who she is. So, Alana Pierce is an Australian writer, producer, on camera host, voice actress, game journalist, and YouTuber, currently serving as one of the main on camera co hosts, content producers, and co hosts of the comedy, gaming, and entertainment news YouTube channel Funhouse, a Los Angeles based channel brand of Rooster Teeth. Whew, that's a long sentence. She is also recognized for her work at IGN, as Greg pointed out, and on national radio and television in Australia. She also had her own self-titled YouTube channel where she streams gameplay, makes let's plays, and talks about video games. I have been a fan of Alana Pierce for a very long time before she was at Funhouse and when she was at IGN. And I do subscribe to her YouTube channel. I'm a big fan of who she is. I think the way that she talks about video game content and video game news like it's extremely relevant, and she has a great voice in terms of not just like her actual physical voice, but like her opinions. Um, and I just find her a really, really interesting person. So I do subscribe and I do follow her channel. So to see her on the Uncharted playthrough was quite a surprise, but also like I know that Troy and Nolan have probably mentioned her before in the Rooster Teeth family. I just think it's really nice that they sort of included other members from Rooster Teeth, and she's probably one of the most popular members, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but yeah, I was really surprised seeing it. I didn't know until obviously I went onto the live chat and it was counting down the minutes to the premiere, and you see Alana in the thumbnail, and that was so cool. Like I was so hyped. I couldn't believe that she would be on there. I thought that they would add more of a contribution, but they did kind of like segment her in with like an interview, like a personal interview in the white background room where she talks about her experiences playing Uncharted, and then they cut into the newest episode. But I thoroughly enjoyed having uh like seeing her on it, and also like the fact that they want to include more guests. I think that's
Sweet.
great.
I loved how they
More.
approached it too, with the whole bit where they kind of teleport them in, and Troy was like,
Yeah.
"We can do this." and Nolan's just like, oh yeah, totally, no
Yeah,
problem.
this is a thing. I can do that. That's my game. It's my channel. It's my playthrough. I'm gonna do it.
And as
Yeah,
far
it's
as
cool.
I can give my perspective, as you obviously know Alana and you're a fan of hers, and when I saw her, I had no idea who she was, and it was
Okay.
like, oh, okay, there's this other person here. I actually in the live chat was like, who's this person? And people were telling me, and I was like, oh, okay. And the funny thing is, I've been a fan of Rooster Teeth and IGN for years, and I'm sure I've either seen or heard of or read some of her work, just never put a name to the face kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I can say that seeing her appear on the episode and her being a part of it definitely didn't bother me. I thought that she had a good contribution, especially because I think there was a good point that she was there in that it was a really tense part of the game. Like Nolan was concentrating as hard as he could.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why they wanted to bring a guest in, because it would have just been Troy talking to Nolan the whole time. So,
I would agree. Actually, like Nolan has this really sick concentration face
oh my god, I
that
love
all
it.
of us make. All of us make it. I don't care who you are. If you're a gamer, at some point you have made that face, and I think it is a very it's a pivotal point of the game. It's very frustrating. I think his death count in the bunker was like 8, according to the live chat. It was about 8 or 9,
It was
which
getting
was
up there.
way less. I mean, it was way less than I did. I definitely died a billion times in that.
And what's completely funny about Nolan playing Uncharted is that you could, if you've, and for all of you who have watched it from the beginning up until now, he had at first he had no idea what he was doing.
Oh,
he was
was
dying left and
terrible.
right. And he's like, he actually has somewhat of a flow to it. And what's really funny is that the chapter where they were in that puzzle room where they would have to follow the Roman numerals, I had such a tough time figuring that out, and he literally did it like way less than like a lot of the stuff that we considered hard. He actually got through a lot better than I originally did when I first played through it. And a lot of people felt the same way. So he actually he's not doing too bad. He's actually doing pretty good. So I feel like I feel like once the more Uncharted he plays, the better he's just going to get in general. I understand he still has some trouble with the covering and some of the stuff. He's gonna, once he figures out how to do run and gun, he's gonna be a force to be reckoned
I've been
with.
posting and tweeting to them for ages, like, please learn how to run and gun, please.
Yeah,
I don't know why they haven't utilized the hipfire more, because especially in that last episode in the bunker, like that would have been so much
that
easier.
was a good
And
run.
I think he only used definitely, and I think he used 1 grenade, and I'm like, man, like they are there for a reason. And just like you're in this corridor, and they're basically tunneling into you, and you're like, that's perfect. Just back a grenade in there, and you'll be fine. Just blow everybody up. It's fine.
If I can go back to his face for a quick second, I was gonna comment that in the live chat I was watching Nolan's face while he was concentrating, and I posted in there that Nolan's face looks like the guy from Wolfenstein when he shoots. Because if you remember old Wolfenstein or even old Doom, you have the little image of the guy in the bottom of the screen.
Oh,
and when you're not doing anything, when you're just moving around, his face is resting. But when you shoot, he grimaces. He's like, "Arr!" when he's shooting.
Yeah.
And that was Nolan. Every time he shoot at the monsters, you could see his face twinge and he grimaces.
And I just think like that whole episode kind of, that I remember playing that and being so frustrated, and you can see the frustration on Nolan's face as well, which is it's just hilarious, because you're just like, man, that was so me. I'm so glad you know what we're going through now.
He now knows the pain that we endured when we were playing Uncharted.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, just to touch back on your point, to say that like he is going to get better, like that he is getting better, like he's way better than he first was in the first episode.
Absolutely.
If I may, I'm
but
gonna
now
drop
like
a soundbite. Yeah.
Yeah, so they sorry.
All right, if I interrupted you and made you lose concentration.
You're grand. I just think like he has gotten so much better, and now that they're going to play Uncharted 2 and potentially Uncharted 3 and 4, like the controls change. Like the controls change where he can actually do things, do more, I guess, functions or actions with the controller, in Uncharted 2 and 3. So I think he'll find that a lot better to use.
Yeah.
So I think he's getting really good. I'm proud. Like we watched him since the first episode and we were all cringing. And then Troy was not helping because he
No.
would say stuff like press square or press triangle. And we're like, no, Troy, it's circle. Jesus, it's circle.
Yeah, Nolan actually, because he was actually telling what button how to reload, and Troy was like, "Oh, it's triangle," and Nolan was like, "No, it's not. It's R1." And Troy was like, "Oh, you're right." And I was like, "Wow, Nolan just schooled Troy in Uncharted."
Yeah. And it's just like the whole fact that he was like, "You're not helping me in this episode. Like you guys are killing me." And then Troy's like, "No, we're not. We're trying to help you." And
Yeah.
Alana's like, "Are we?"
Yeah, are we
That's
though?
Are we?
exactly how I
Yeah.
feel for like the whole playthrough, where Troy's like trying to help, but he's just really not helping.
It's like when
And I just think it's frustrating.
when Nolan activates the machine and the monsters start coming at him, and he goes, "What do I do?" And Troy goes, "Don't die."
Yeah. Just don't die.
do it. Yeah.
My mantra playing that whole thing, I would just be like, "Don't die, don't die, don't." Damn. Like
I died.
death count 1. Like, yeah.
Can I make an unpopular opinion?
Okay, go ahead.
That everyone is going to be like, "How dare you, Greg?"
Let's get all the haters to hate on Greg. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Here we
no,
go.
I'm fine. If you guys need to vent on me, go right ahead. Feel free to after I make the statement. Okay, so now that we're quickly on topic about the future Uncharted's,
Mhm.
and before everyone crucifies me, I will explain why I have this opinion. Uncharted 2 is my least favorite Uncharted, whereas it's everybody's favorite.
Absolutely.
Here is why.
Oh.
Let me do a takeaway first.
I'm gonna let you finish.
The story of Uncharted is definitely one of the best, if not the best. I will give them that. The whole premise behind it is great.
Mhm.
I feel the combat and the gunplay, the mechanics for some reason were a lot worse, and then the forced stealth was not good. And I think that kind of especially in the beginning where you have to stealth, and no matter what you do, the guys have like pure 20/20 vision and will spot you from like a far distance if you're not
Mhm.
careful. And I'm sure there's a script of how to do it, but even with the walkthrough that I did, because I was at the part where I couldn't figure it out, I still had trouble,
Mhm.
and you kind of had to get a little finicky with it to get through it. I don't know why, but the gunplay, even like going for headshots and stuff, I feel like something was off with it compared to the first one. And then 3 kind of brought it back, and now the fourth one kind of in Lost Legacy have like one of the better gun aiming.
Mhm.
Especially if you use aim assist, which I'm not proud of, but I am proud of. I used aim assist in 4 in Lost Legacy. But regardless of that, yeah. And unfortunately with Uncharted, the gunplay is one of the bigger parts of the games, if not like all of them. And I feel like something definitely got removed or like redone in it, and it completely made the game. It didn't make the game difficult, but it since that's a big part of the game, it took away of how I was playing the game. And especially kind of the boss ending, what you have to do.
Yeah.
With shooting the crystals and like shooting him at the same time when he's weak. Like it was a very weird boss fight, and with the gunplay that didn't really help me, and that's why it's my least favorite. It's not awful. It's one of the better Uncharted games for sure, but
Mhm.
unfortunately because of the combat and the stealth and everything, that's why it's my least favorite.
I feel like though Uncharted games are not like, I mean, especially the first one as well, like the gunplay is so difficult, like the controllers are so difficult and everything. So
Mhm.
it didn't put me off. It definitely didn't put me off Uncharted 2. I love Uncharted 2. Um I'm just a
gun.
big fan of all of them,
Running
honestly.
gun. I think
Yeah,
that was.
just hip fire, for God's
I
sake.
think Uncharted 2 was all about the running gun and the hip fire, because that's 99% of what I did, especially if you play
Mhm.
the online multiplayer. That was the move.
I barely played the multiplayer.
I played a
Barely.
lot of the multiplayer.
I never touched it, and that's maybe my issue, Dan. Is I was basically, from what I remember, I did run and gun in Uncharted 1, but not as much as like what Nolan was doing, where he's standing and like aiming. When in a lot of reality, you have to move and then aim and everything. I think that was the reason, is that I didn't perfect run and gun in it, and maybe when I go back to it, maybe once I do that and maybe switch, because I do plan on replaying them all and
Yeah.
hopefully platinuming them them
Platinum.
all. I don't know.
Platypussing them.
Platypussing,
Yeah,
yes.
platypusing,
Getting the
yeah.
platinum trophy for all of them,
Alright.
which isn't going to be an easy
I'm
feat,
gonna
but
throw
I'm
one
going
of
to at
these in
least
there just for
attempt.
fun.
Cooper, You were on the freeway.
Like that's definitely like when they. We'll come back to this, Greg. Let's put the pin in this because I'm coming.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to Uncharted 2. But when they brought in Cooper first, I actually thought that was hilarious, and I couldn't believe that they brought him in. But the way that they did it, with the fact that he was like on a freeway, and like Troy couldn't get over it, and then he was in, and then just as quick he was out. I thought that was a great setup for bringing Alana in. I think if it was a cold setup and
nice
Alana just showed up, I think
Cooper.
people exactly, yeah. I think it was really cool. But yeah, Greg, I understand that with Uncharted 2, but Uncharted 2 is where we meet Chloe. So
Chloe.
No, Chloe,
strong character entrance, and she's
Yes.
definitely one of my favorite characters.
Especially
So I'm
because
like,
there was so
yeah.
long in the game where you're like, oh, where's Elena? What happened
Yeah.
to Elena?
Yeah, no, Chloe, and if you don't know, Chloe is voiced by, her name Claudia Black,
Claudia
correct?
Black.
Yes.
Yep.
Claudia Black has been in a lot of voice acting roles, but she really brought the character of Chloe to life in this game. That was one of the greatest additions to the whole series in general. And I'm not going to take away that Chloe. I love the Chloe character a lot. Actually, honestly, I kind of liked it more than Elena at times.
I did too.
I would
and-
agree, actually. Yeah.
and
I
I
love
love-
Emily Rose, but Jesus,
and-
yeah.
Yes, and I love the fact that they gave her own game in Lost Legacy to basically show that you can still have the Uncharted series without Nathan Drake. It was either going to be hit or miss, and that game was actually one of my favorite Uncharted games, for sure. And having the chemistry between her and Nadine.
Yeah.
But going off of that, in general, I like, when I make an unpopular opinion, I don't take away anything from the game, because in general, that it's a very Uncharted 2 is a very good game.
I'm
not going to take that away from it.
Opinions.
The story and everything. Uncharted 2 is great, but because of the mechanics, that really made me lose a lot of interest in playing it because of just how it was set up. There was something off on it, and like I said, maybe if I replay it again, because it was years ago since I played it, maybe it'll change. But that's basically what I took from it after I played it.
I think just to touch back on what you said there about the Lost Legacy as well, by the way. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite games. That was just fantastic, because I think with the introduction of Chloe and of Nadine, just like when that was announced, man, my freaking mind blew. Like I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be so good, because I love those characters and I wanted to know more about those characters, and now we have a whole freaking game dedicated to them. So I was like, that's awesome. Yeah, so that was awesome, and I just wanted to express my love for that game. Sorry, I cut you right off there, Dan. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna comment on my love for Uncharted 2 stems from, one, the train set piece, because it's just an absolute amazing moment of gaming, anything
agreed.
and everything. And then to me, the other best part of that game was you get to that late stage where you start seeing the Yetis and the snowmen monsters, and it's like, oh shit, it's happening again. Like, just like the slippery naked guys in the first one.
Yeah.
Like, now we got Yetis. Oh my god.
Yeah, I think that was also another thing, is I didn't like the enemy type. I didn't like the slippery naked monsters either. I understand why they were there, but then introducing a stronger version where regular guns take longer to kill them, and you have to kill some of them with certain types of weapons. I think that also, because they had so many come at you in like a couple of swipes, no matter what difficulty you were pretty much done for. I think it was just, I'm complaining about minuscule things, but unfortunately,
all
my
these things
view
I
on
never thought of.
my view on the game, it made my decision on the game in general not be as one of my favorite Uncharted games. It actually, unfortunately, ended up making it my least Uncharted. I have like maybe one or two other people that I've known that would agree with me on it. However, I understand Uncharted 2 is still one of the best, if not the best, Uncharted for a lot of people, even with 4 and Lost Legacy now included into the franchise.
I think 4 definitely for me is, I don't know. I want to say the first one's my favorite, but I think 4 just brought it to another level. I really enjoyed 4 so much, like having the house with Elena and starting in like an underwater recovery job. I just loved it. I absolutely loved every single minute of Uncharted 4. The gameplay and going back as young Nate, like all of that was.
My life was complete when I saw the episode of Retro Replay when they played Crash Bandicoot, and they
Right?
referenced
Yeah, me too.
Nolan North playing Crash Bandicoot, claiming he'd never played Crash Bandicoot when he did play Crash Bandicoot in Uncharted 4 as Nathan Drake.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. That was such a great moment as well. Oh my god, when they turned on the PlayStation and you could hear like the iconic sound, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is going to be amazing." That just literally
Best moment ever.
I would have almost cried. I'm
The
telling
video
you.
game
I think
Inception.
that was yeah, it was just I couldn't believe that they did that, and I was so happy. And then we got to play a little bit of Crash, and I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
this is just the best.
Would you guys like another unpopular opinion?
Oh man.
Oh god.
We gotta
You're
have a
dealing them out
segment.
today.
We
I don't
gotta
know
have
if
a-
I've got.
This
We're gonna have
this
to
one's
create
gonna.
a
I
segment
think.
just for Greg's unpopular opinions.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
unpopular opinion podcast. This one is
Oh,
gonna
right.
sting. This one's gonna sting a lot more than Uncharted 2. The first original PlayStation, I think, is one of the worst consoles ever made.
Agreed.
But
Get
that's
the
only.
hell out.
I don't
That's
disagree with that.
Here's why though. Not because of at the time it was one of the better consoles, but now
Mm.
it's definitely one of the most dated consoles. Like you try to play that game
Oh my
now
God.
or try to play it on an emulator,
It's
the controls and
terrible.
everything are awful. It's awful. I'm not taking
Mm.
away the legacy that PlayStation started because PS2 to me is the best PlayStation console. However,
Agreed.
Okay.
however, if you play a PS1 now, you're gonna have a terrible time. So I'm glad they remade Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, so I can actually play it with better controls and like better
And it's
quality.
fun.
And it's
You don't
fun.
want to
Yeah.
kill yourself playing it.
No.
Okay,
PS1, you're gonna kill yourself.
So, Pagan, did you agree with his statement that the PS1 was a terrible system?
I don't, only because of the nostalgia that brings me. I still have my PlayStation 1 and we still play
So
it.
do I, and I still play it too.
I picked up so we've recently actually just gone through the first Metal Gear.
Oh my god, I love Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear.
Yeah, on PlayStation 1, and that was really good. So we've just gone through that. That was
Myrtle.
sick. But super hard to play. Like I totally understand what you're saying about the controls and everything. It is super hard to play. And we have we just picked up Mickey Mouse. If anybody's seen that, like the Mickey Mouse Adventures on PlayStation 1, like that brought me all the way back. And it's a game where you don't have like you have a checkpoint only for like a limited time. So if you've got 3 lives, you can like replay your checkpoint or whatever for 3 lives, and then after that you have to go all the way back to the very start of the game. And I mean that mechanic is terrible in all of those games, but I don't know, there's just something about I don't know.
Well,
I do get what you're saying though,
point, Greg's unpopular opinion in our current situation is the popular opinion because both me and him think the PS1 is the worst of the PlayStation systems. So Greg, your opinion is not so unpopular.
Oh, thank God.
Can I also point I don't know, point out that you're both male. So your opinions don't matter anyways.
Let me
male.
I also had an N64 first, and I loved my N64, and I was a huge Nintendo fanboy. Like die-hard Nintendo fanboy. And a friend of mine got a PlayStation 1, and he always had like sports games and racing games, and he'd like, hey, let's play these games, and I'm like, oh, these look like crap compared to my Nintendo 64 games.
The PS1 for sports and like Ace Combat and the driving games, the PS1 was very good with those. However, even with the N64, the control scheme is pretty bad too. But I actually like the N64. I had an N64, and I grew up. Maybe my opinion would be different if I grew up with a PlayStation, because as Dan, whoever mentioned earlier about growing up with the Super Nintendo, that was my first ever console. I got it when I was 3 years old in 1996, so I've been playing games for like 21 years now, I think.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna age myself so bad.
23 years. Yeah. So I can totally get the whole, depending on like what you grew up with. I didn't grow up with a Genesis either. My cousins had it, so I played on there. But yeah, I don't know. That's why the only way I play PS1 games now is if I run my emulator, which I have an emulator for, because they have save states. So any game like you were mentioning with
I still
the
have my
Mickey
PS1.
Yeah.
with the Mickey adventures, I can understand like why, like now looking at that how they did the checkpoint system, it'd be awful, but the save state makes it 10 times easier.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
can
I would.
share a story, and then if Pagan will give me a little story time.
Story time.
Story time. I was gonna say, as far as
Gather
like
around, kids.
going back to the my being an N64 kid and not having a PlayStation 1, but then my friend who had the PlayStation 1 was always wanting me to play, and then he got Crash Bandicoot,
Mm.
and then he got Resident Evil 2. And after I played those two games, I was like, oh my god, there's other things in the world besides Nintendo. And
Okay.
it was that Christmas I got PlayStation 1 with Crash Bandicoot, Crash Bandicoot 2, Resident Evil, Resident Evil 1. And I became a multi-platform fan and not a fanboy.
I, like yourself and I guess Greg were saying that, like, I didn't grow up with that. I didn't have a Nintendo 64. I had PlayStation. PlayStation came out in 95. So I think I got it maybe 96, 97.
Oh, that would
My
be
dad brought it home. My dad brought it home and was like, "This is what we're gonna play now." And I think it was kind of almost like my dad was convinced that he was gonna play it more, and he never did. And he got us loads, and we had like a chip in it that would play like all these copied games, so it wouldn't have to be like the legit disc. Um, oops. But we got it, and it just played other games. So we played it. We played everything. But yeah, like one of my earliest memories of video games would be playing Crash Bandicoot. And I would have like eventually like I would have played it so much that I would know all the sounds and everything. So I used to mute the computer or mute the TV, and I would play like my own albums, whatever was in at the time. I think it was actually Pink. It was like a Pink album. And anytime I hear that album now, all I can think about is Crash Bandicoot. So I grew up with that. So I feel like I don't really have anything to compare it to. So I would always think like that was my number one console. Um, However, I don't think it's the greatest console of all time. Definitely not. But it was a really good console for me, and it just doesn't do anything except bring nostalgia to me. And the controls were horrendous. And I remember trying to play Harry Potter, and the controls were just not happening for what they wanted it to do. Like when you're trying to play Quidditch and you have to go through these hoops.
So
If anybody else knows,
that just made me thought, what's your favorite, best, worst PlayStation 1 game?
best or worst PlayStation 1 game?
Not best or worst, but the game that you loved even though it was terrible.
Oh,
Say Tomb Raider.
I don't know.
That's
Yeah,
a good
Tomb
one. That's
Raider
a
was
good
a
one.
good one. Tomb Raider is a good one. I've played all the Tomb Raiders right up from like the first one on PlayStation 1 that I had. And yeah, that was like the mechanics in that were just terrible. Like
Mhm.
so bad. And the story was kind of rubbish, and some of the voice acting was kind of rubbish. But like, yeah, I'd probably say that. Like that was a good bad game
How about you,
in
Greg?
terms of like
D-
story.
Tomb Raider.
Oh, come on. All right.
Well,
Definitely think
here's
so.
the thing. I'm the kind of person that wants to play like a series like from beginning to end and like do the different versions. I played a little bit of the first Tomb Raider of the original saga, which is the first 6 games technically if you count, and before this second reboot with Anniversary, Legend, and Underworld, and then this newer one, which I think is the best one so far, hands down. I still want to try to go back and do all of them because I do have Legend, Anniversary, and Underworld, and I could play Anniversary because
Anniversary is awesome.
is a remake or a remake of the first game essentially.
Oh yeah.
So really, I could just go back and play that and just go and start and do 2 through 6 because I think 2 got a little better, but it still wasn't perfect.
Right.
But yeah, I haven't played a lot of PS1 games, but almost every single one that I've played, I just was like, I can't play this. This is just the graphics and the control. It's just awful.
I would agree.
Especially with like trying to play the Medal of Honor games, playing on a disc and using heart saves. Medal of Honor gets pretty janky too. The first two,
especially
that were
was
on
before
PlayStation.
the double analog sticks too.
Yeah, it's pressing X to shoot your gun. It's tough. Anyone playing a PS1 now, if like no one has ever played it, especially if they've played like all the new systems and have even done PC gaming, nobody will enjoy playing PS1 properly. It'll be a small majority that actually like it.
So
Yeah, I would
have,
agree. I
Just
think
due to controls alone.
I have a good, awful, best PlayStation 1 game that it was the first thing that I thought of as soon as you started talking about a game that you loved, but it was terrible. For me, it was Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace on the PS1.
I never played that.
The game was absolute trash, but it had one mechanic that was so satisfying. Me and my buddy, it was a co-op game, and it was kind of like a top-down isometric hack and slash. But the one thing it did right was a block and reflect laser blast with your lightsaber. So,
Okay.
And if you did it right, if you timed it right, you would automatically kill the droids that were shooting at you.
Oh, cool.
So it came down to timing the pressing of I think it was R1 was the block button, and if you did if you just held R1, you would just block the blast and it would just deflect them. But if you hit it just right, it would counter it and hit it right back at them and decapitate them. And it was the most satisfying thing ever, even though the game ran like crap. It was so janky. The character models were terrible. The environments were bland, and the game crashed constantly. So I replayed the first two stages over and over again.
No, I thankfully had never played that. That is like definitely Crash Bandicoot my favorite. Really?
Yeah.
Everyone, party at dance. We gotta go.
Woo! Live stream.
Retro gaming, and by retro we mean like PlayStation 1.
I'll stream playing some, and you guys can see how terrible it is.
Geez, sweet. So let me just move on to a section back into the retro replay episodes, and I just wanted to see if you guys have a highlight from this week's episodes. These last weeks. No, the last two episodes.
Yes, please do the Robot Boys.
If you have any highlights from them, or if you have something that you would like to see them play next, Greg.
Can I do two answers? Like Absolutely. For one for after Uncharted and one for just a general.
I actually have the same answer, so go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys I'm sure know, but if you don't know, I sent them in a game. And
yes, I did see this.
Yes, Deadpool. I had it on PS4. I played it, and I wanted to send it to them in case they wanted an in-between game between the Uncharted's, because the Uncharted games you definitely don't want to play back to back. You definitely want to take a little bit of a break,
right.
So you don't get drained. Because if you play any franchise, you play like God of War. I played through all the Gods of War, and I didn't take a small break. So by the time the new one came out, I was like, eh. I have another unpopular opinion for that, but we're not going to talk about that.
We'll come back another time.
But if you have an unpopular opinion about that, I don't want to hear it, Greg.
I don't want to hear it.
You don't want to hear that? You don't want to hear that one's my least favorite God of War? Oh, okay, that's fine. We won't talk about
it. Which God of War?
The new one.
Oh, okay.
Mainly again because of combat, but yeah. The most satisfying part of the game was throwing your axe and retrieving it. That's like I literally spammed that the whole game until I got the blades, and then I never used the axe again. However, okay, we're gonna move from that. No more unpopular opinions.
I need to get a soundbite for tangents. Like, okay, you're going on a tangent.
All right.
Yeah. Unpopular opinion soundbite. So, I would like for them to play that, maybe even just a little bit, to give them kind of like a quick little palate cleanser, like they mentioned and we were talking about the Crash Bandicoot episode. If you haven't seen it, that's where they show off the Deadpool game. And everything. So it would be nice to see them play. And I actually sent them in another game, which Troy Baker and Laura Bailey voiced. I call Laura Bailey Troy's voiceover wife, because they've done a lot of games together. Tales from the Borderlands, Resident Evil 6, just to name a few. They were a part of this game called Men in Black Alien Crisis. which
Awesome.
has been the last Men in Black movie game that has come out. They did not make one for the new Men in Black, which they shouldn't, because the new Men in Black isn't that great.
Mm.
However, it's an on rails third person shooter. It's very arcadey, but it's very fun. I think it was more implemented for if you had the light gun for the PS3 and the Move controllers. I think you would have had more fun with it. I think that was the point. But with the controls, they're not too great. But it has charm. There's a lot of humor and there's a lot of they made that game come to life, Laura and Troy. So I would say one of those two that I sent in, just so they can, take a little break from the Uncharted, maybe do anything that they've done, because they've talked about different games. They talked about doing Last of Us and maybe Assassin's Creed. They've talked about different ones that they would want to be, maybe even BioShock Infinite, that they'd be willing to try.
Yeah.
To try. So that's that answer. My other answer would be for in general. So if anyone who's watched the show, their first ever episode was Spider-Man for the Atari, and Nolan got extreme PTSD from that game. I as the generous, kind person that I am, I want Nolan to have something new to have a PTSD for, not have to think about Spider-Man. So I want to recommend Top Gun for NES.
Oh my god.
Only to try for them to land the plane, because
geez.
Nolan is gonna have them both are gonna have a hard time doing it.
Especially after Independence Day.
Yes, and after another quick little snippet, members, if you're a member of Retro Replay, they do every few weeks a members only live chat. And a few, like 4 or 5 live chats ago, they were talking about what they were upcoming and wanted to play, and they gave recommendations. And I mentioned Top Gun, and Troy basically was like, "Greg, are you serious? Do you really hate Nolan that much?"
I feel like there's nothing more entertaining than seeing Nolan North stressed. Like that's the point
Troy
of the
really
Retro
does
Replay
enjoy
show.
that.
They were just like, let's find a way to stress Nolan North out and get it on camera. Like that's kind of how that came up with that.
That's why I recommend that game. So those are my technically 3, but my 2 what I would pick for both
the main ones.
topics.
All right.
Yep.
All right, I'll go with that. Dan?
Did Greg want to do a highlight before we move
on?
on?
Oh yeah, Greg, you want to do a highlight for this week?
Well, yes. I would like to, I think the highlight obviously is I knew they were going to beat Narc, so I have to give them credit for good, because I know without unlimited lives, regardless, you would waste tons of quarters playing that game, because it does get pretty intense, especially with 2 players. There is a lot of action in it. I will say also, regardless of how difficult the monsters were, Nolan did a pretty decent job getting through that. And even though he had to restart a section 4 or 5 different times, he actually got through it. And you could see he was really dedicated to finishing it, and he 100%. Did. So I was very happy for him that he got through that part, because that part I knew was not going to be fun for him.
That's a good highlight. That's a good highlight.
Good, nice. So
and you want to segue in?
Yeah. So I'll start with my modern game, which actually only just came to me yesterday, I think, when I was rewatching the Uncharted playthrough, and for the last few weeks, my mind's just been like Uncharted 2. I was stuck on. I can't wait for them to play Uncharted 2. But if they were to do a in-between game, like Greg was saying, it was watching last week's episode that made me think, you know what I'd like to see them play, especially if it's going to be Nolan playing primarily and not Troy, is Resident Evil 4.
Yes, that's an interesting one.
Well, if you think about it, the way Nolan plays Uncharted, he does the stop and pop. He constantly stops and pops, and watching him play made me think this is like watching Uncharted or Resident Evil 4. And I thought that would be a great game to watch Nolan play, because it's just like that whole segment where you got the zombies coming at you. It's high stress, but there's also the puzzle elements that we've been seeing Nolan do really well at.
Yes.
So I think that would be extra satisfying to see him complete those puzzles. It's got the quick time events. And just Resident Evil 4 is like one of the best games ever. And I can't
especially
stress
for
that
the
enough.
Series.
Yeah. And I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. I would love to see Resident Evil 4 and like their take on it Nolan playing it, Nolan getting stressed out, especially the harder parts of the game. Not to mention Troy's reactions, and Troy's like, it just his noises and his reactions trying to fear for Nolan.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I think that would be an awesome, like, in-betweener.
Mhm.
And for their retro replay game, I've actually tweeted this to Troy and the replayer Twitter account a couple of times. I'm a big fan of when they play co-op games, and to keep it in light of the old school classic games. One of my favorite old Nintendo co-op games is Akari Warriors.
Okay.
That was made by Konami, and it's a top-down scroller, like, shoot 'em up.
Okay.
It's basically like a rip-off of Rambo. You play as a soldier that just is stuck in the jungle, and you just got endless machine gun ammo, and you're just blasting enemies and tanks and things. And you can play a co-op, so it'll be player 1, player 2, red guy, blue guy, and you can. I feel like that would be a very entertaining game to watch the two of them play together.
Definitely.
Especially because I enjoy when they co-op.
And with regards to highlight for this week, do you have anything like that was kind of your favorite moment?
Yeah, and I mean, I got this.
Third game. Cooper, you were on the freeway.
Soundbite
It's a
highlight.
good moment. It's a good moment. I'm not gonna lie. It was a good moment to see Cooper North on there.
I think the other, if I had to choose a moment too, there was also the dick light. I thought that was pretty funny, and it was
That was pretty
Alana
funny.
too that kind of pointed that out, and then Troy ran with it, and in usual Troy fashion, he turned it into a song.
Yeah, of course. Saying that his dick would light the way or something, right?
And my dick will light the way.
That should definitely be on their album, honestly.
Add it to the Seamus
They're-
tonight.
They're gonna have a ton of albums with just bits that they've done.
Yeah, definitely. I want a whole album. I want a full retro replay album. Drew, crew, get on it.
And I'm naked.
Yeah, I'm sure they're getting on it. I'm sure they'll release a song. It'd be great. Yeah, really good ones. Actually, really good highlights
Do you have
and
any
good suggestions for games. Highlight for me on this week's episodes definitely was the appearance of Alana and Cooper. I think it was really nice to have guests on. It breaks it up a little bit.
Nice.
As we discussed before, I am a fan of Alana, and I had followed her work before, and I follow her YouTube, and so it was really nice to see them implementing more of the Rooster Teeth family on their show, since they're now part of that family too. So suggestions, I'm not sure. I think modern suggestion for the guys, I don't know. Like, I think they're definitely going to play Uncharted and obviously The Last of Us at some point. I think that would be excellent to see even Nolan play, because I know Troy has played that. So I think it would be really interesting. But I am interested to see them play a bit more horror genre, only because I hate horror genre. I can't play that myself. I am the biggest coward.
You're a baby.
I am a big baby, and I don't play that at all. I don't play them well. I freak out, and I play maybe 3 minutes, and then I pause, and then play another 3 minutes, and then I pause again. So I think that would be cool if we can get something like that,
Just
and then
throw
I think
the controller and go nope, nope, nope.
exactly hop on the note train back to fuck that Phil. Yeah. But I would love them to see them play some more horror, and I would love to see them do something with a heart rate monitor and pop it on whoever's playing, and then do it in the dark or whatever, and then just see that. I think that would be really interesting for like a Halloween episode or something, to monitor the heart rate as you're playing a really scary game, like Layers of Fear even would be fantastic to see them play. But again, it's not like a co-op or anything, so it would have to be a one-person player. But I think you get, especially with something like Layers of Fear or Resi 7, you would get that feeling of fear, even if you're a backseat gamer. Like, I definitely did. And I won't play those games. Because I'm such a coward. I think that's kind of it for the retro replay show every Thursday. If I have a suggestion, I don't really. I loved when they played Crash Bandicoot. That was definitely something I wanted to see them play, and I'm really glad that they did.
Oh, yeah, you were more of a PlayStation kid anyway, so.
Exactly, yeah. And I think there is another game, and I don't know if it's on PlayStation. Someone can correct me or not. The Lion King. I know Kessie had sent them that.
Like
Kessie
the Super
is
Nintendo Lion King?
It could be, yeah.
There was
I
a
think
Super
I definitely
Nintendo
played
line
it
game. That
on.
game was awesome, actually. I would love to see them play that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played
Especially
that.
the
Maybe.
second level.
I love that
Yeah.
game.
I
I beat that game hundreds of times as a kid.
And that game was like part of my childhood, and I think we played it on PC. But I
Let
think
me on
Kessie, one of the replayers from Discord and an active replayer on live chat, is the Kessie Bear, I believe. Kessie sent them in the Lion King, and she's sort of waiting for them to play that. And I would definitely love to see them play that because I think
Nice. I'm
again
down.
that game was part of my childhood, and it was difficult at times. It definitely was. Level 2, level 3, like did
I would
like
love to see
damn
them play that game
that
because, like
got
I said,
me.
I played the crap out of that game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good game, and I think it would be one of those games that they could clear, like
Yeah.
that they did with Narc, and they did that before with another game, Moonwalker, where they cleared that. That was pretty cool.
Moonwalker confused me because I have Moonwalker for Genesis, and it looks nothing like the game they played.
Oh, really?
It's a
Yeah,
completely
some
different
games like
game.
that on different versions, the gameplay is a lot different. So yeah,
Mhm.
Moonwalker is definitely depending on which one you play. It's definitely different, and it's very like easily noticeable the difference in
Yeah.
between them. The Lion King though, I think they're all the same on all of
Mm.
the different
All the
versions.
playthrough is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either one, they're gonna have a hard time. I know Super Nintendo is especially notorious for for very hard games, especially because that was a point before we were blessed with checkpoints and save states and extra lives, like 3 lives, and like boom, that's it. You got to start all the way at the beginning. So
Yeah.
yeah, this I would like to see them try to figure out that puzzle where the monkeys are throwing you and
Yes.
the end.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
I
Oh my
love that
god,
part.
yes. That was such a good like nostalgia, man, in a bottle. Give it to me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, we're hitting that 60-minute mark,
Oh,
so
the
we're
graveyard.
gonna that great. Oh man, that's such a good game. We're hitting that 60-minute mark, so we're gonna start wrapping things up. But before we go, just some quick replayer news before we head into like the goodbye section. If anyone is heading into Manchester Comic Con on the 27th or 28th of July, there will be a replayer meetup happening. So feel free to DM us, or you can join the Retro Replay Discord for more information. You can just Google that. It's pretty much one of the first 2 links that comes up, and join us there. And yeah, I guess I'd like to thank everybody for listening, and thank you so much to our wonderful guest, Mr. Greg Bergner. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, man.
I appreciate.
Do
Yeah.
you have socials or anything people can follow you at?
I have a YouTube technically, but I don't really put anything on it. However, I
Okay.
may consider putting stuff down the road, but I'm not a big YouTuber because there's a ton of people already
Mhm.
that do their own thing. I also have a Twitch, but I don't know if I want to do that. My main social is on Twitter.
Okay.
If you search the Greg 007, the T and G are capitalized, everything else is lowercase and it's all put together as one. So
Perfect.
the Greg 007, that's where I'm at. If you want to follow me, I put random stuff on there. I'm also here on the Discords that we have. It's really easy to find me. It's not that hard, but that's my main source of contact right now.
Awesome. And yeah, thank you so much for being here and for being part of the show today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Oh,
sir.
you're welcome. And thank you so much to Dan Morris, my lovely co-host. Can we find you on socials anywhere if anybody's looking to follow you?
Sure. Actually, if I can, I just want to make a quick acknowledgement for the Manchester Comic Con, if I may.
Mhm.
You want to try and interview some of the Discord crew while you're there, correct? And have like a little thing put
Yeah,
together?
absolutely. At the meetup, I would have a chat with anybody who would like
Yeah.
to interview or who would like to partake in one of the next episodes, and just see who would be interested, and then we would likely organize a call like we're doing right now.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out. If anyone listening wants to be a part of that, that's going to Manchester, to try and touch base with either me or you
For sure.
to
Yeah,
see
for
if you
sure.
want to get in on that.
Really?
Yeah, so for me, I'm Stark Evil Vash, and I believe my Twitter handle is at Starky Vash,
Okay.
which is kind of like my Nintendo shortened version of my name.
Fair enough.
I am on Twitch and YouTube and Mixer also as Stark Evil Vash. There's not
Pretty simple.
much to see on there at the moment, but I have been considering getting back on that and doing some stuff. So news to come on that side, I suppose.
Cool. Yeah, and thank you again for joining me, Dan and Greg. My name is Pagan, and I have been your host this week for this week's episode. You're welcome to follow me on socials. I'm at Pagan_plays on Instagram and on Twitch. And on Twitter, it should just be Pagan Plays. If you Google that, you should see me pop up. You see my headshot pop up. And yeah, we hope you've enjoyed our podcast. And if you'd like to hear more from us, please go ahead, like, and subscribe. And if you have any suggestions or questions, please feel free to pop us an email at thereplayerpodcast@gmail.com. So yeah, I guess until next time, folks.
Sweet.
See ya.
Bye.
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 Blah, blah, blah.